Greetings friends. Here we are again with another FreeCAD tutorial. This time, I'm going to show what I believe is a bug that appears when applying a multi-transform feature. The issue lies in the volume calculation of the bodies. First, I'll show you what I did. Here, I created a couple of sketches, one for a cross-section and one for a path. Using these sketches, along with some subshape binders, I performed a sweep operation to create this tube. Okay? This tube has a volume of 98 milliliters. And this volume matches exactly the difference between the volume of an outer bar, let's call it that, and the volume of an inner bar. So, if I subtract the inner bar's volume from the outer bar's volume, I get precisely the volume of the tube. And as we can see here, they match completely. Here we have the volume of the tube, and here is the volume of the outer bar. When I subtract the inner bar's volume from the outer bar's volume, the result matches the tube's volume exactly. The difference between these two volumes is 0. Perfect match, no problem here. Now let's move forward and apply a multi-transformation to this body, although in this case, it will only include a single transformation. Here we have tube 2. Look, it's right there. By performing a reflection, we obtain this new tube. Its volume is exactly double the previous one. We can check it over here and do the math. 98 plus 98 gives me exactly what I have here. Great! Again, I can calculate this volume by subtracting the inner bar's volume from the outer bar's volume. And look, the result matches perfectly. Here, I show the volume of the tube, the volume of the outer bar, and the volume of the inner bar. When I take the difference, it matches completely. That's why the difference between these two volumes is 0. But now, what happens when I apply another transformation to the same body? Here's the transformation, one reflection across the XY plane and another across the XZ plane. Let's see what happens here. Look at the value we get over here, 1402. And right there is where the error appears. So, placing everything in the same setup, here we have an outer bar, and you can see it really is just a bar, right here. When we apply the multi-transformation to this bar, we get this shape shown here. Alright. The same thing applies to the inner bar. When we apply the multi-transformation, first a reflection on this plane and then another on this other plane, we end up with this part here. But now, look what happens here. Let's check the volumes. This is the volume of the outer bar, and this is the volume of the inner bar. Notice that we have nearly 900 here, and a little over 500 there. Therefore, 900 minus 500 should be around 400, right? Which would be the volume of the tube. However, here the volume of the tube shows 1400. Examining this more closely, we can see what's happening. Look here. We have this 1400 something, and we observe that the outer bar has a volume of 897 as expected, and the inner bar has this value here. But instead of subtracting the inner bar's volume from the outer bar's volume to get this tube volume here, the software seems to be adding them together, which results in this final volume. And that's why this discrepancy occurs. It seems clear beyond doubt that this is a bug. I will upload this video to the FreeCAD forum so that developers can take a look into the matter. Well, that's all I had to share with you for now. Stay tuned. Greetings.